Welcome to Sports Scouts. I'm Joey Goodser.
I'm Michael Rope.
And we are recording this episode 2.2 on Wednesday, December 11th, 2019. We are excited to really get back into the rhythm of things here with Sports Scouts. Got a lot of exciting stories to talk about. So, for the first time this season, Michael, here are the Scout scores.
Yep, so boys basketball last night lost to Mundelein 58-24. They play against Lake Zurich on Friday, so they look to get back on track after a tough loss last night. Girls basketball, on the other hand, defeated St. Charles North 52-43 last night. They play against Mundelein tonight. Boys hockey played against Highland Park Sunday. They faced New Trier Blue after break. Girls hockey is also happening with a recent 10-0 win over Warren. We have an article on that talks more about them, done by Kira Burns, which is really well done. And girls gymnastics has a meet tonight at home against Stevenson. Wrestling finished first in the Tom, you know how to say this, Joey?
Probably Du Bois or Dubois, depending on how French you want to be about it.
But they finished in first, so they will be at Lake Zurich Thursday, and they also have a wrestling match on Saturday, I believe. I'm not exactly sure where, but we'll get more on that if we find it out later in the show. And girls and boys swimming and diving will be at Mundelein tomorrow night.
Very excited for that.
That's my Scout scores for this week.
Yeah, so thanks, Michael. There are your Scout scores. If you want more on the latest in LFHS Sports, make sure you check out the Force Scout, the latest articles, as we talked about. Kira Burns had one on girls hockey if you want to learn more about them, because they often don't get talked about. As always, we have basketball previews rolling in and out. Peter Elliott started a new sports report series with some video recaps, which are really cool.
Those are really cool to get actual footage of the games. We never had that before. So
right. Really cool. I hope that continues. And then also a feature on JV athletes, as well as a look at the baseball 2020 schedule with AJ Shaw, of course. Pleasure to have him on to talk Scouts last week. So also, if you didn't hear the sport you wanted to hear, or we screwed up in some way, make sure you just send in the scores and informative news to our email. It's still the same, sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com, so Michael can give you guys a shout out. So let's move on to national sports with, as always, Show Me What You've Got. So as we're doing this time of year with Show Me What You Got, this is where we're throwing in our postseason football talk. So predictably, I'm bringing in college football here with conference weekend, which was pretty notable with some kind of definitive games that really put all the playoff debates to a close and really kind of rounded things off nicely for the committee. There weren't any super huge decisions to be made. Here were the final rankings. Here's how the final rankings rolled out. We have LSU at number 1, Ohio State moving down to number 2, Clemson 3, Oklahoma 4. So those are your playoff teams who will play on December 28th. More about that, really previewing that next week. Georgia at 5, just outside, Oregon number 6, Baylor number 7, Wisconsin 8, Florida 9, Penn State 10, Utah 11, Auburn 12, Alabama 13, Michigan 14, Notre Dame 15, Iowa 16, Memphis 17, Minnesota 18, Boise State 19, App State at 20, Cincinnati 21, USC 22, Navy at 23, Virginia 24, and Oklahoma State 25. So those are your playoff rankings as we round out the regular season here, and we truly move into the bowl season, which should be pretty exciting with lots of new matchups. I mean, I think the biggest thing is the main thing to point out is that your playoff teams does not include Alabama. There's definitely a significant shakeup. We got LSU in there, which is pretty new. And Ohio State is back in there, and we'll see what they do because they seem like a more complete team than their playoff teams of the past. Probably one of the best Ohio State teams we've ever seen, for sure. So we'll see what happens there, and we'll look more at that. But this week, as always, before we really get into that time of year, there's one more regular season game to finish things off, as always. Army-Navy in Philadelphia, one of the greatest rivalries in sports. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on the Army-Navy game?
Every year, it's just, it doesn't matter how good the teams are. It's always a great game. And Army ranked, or Navy, ranked 23, you said?
Yes.
So they're definitely in. I think usually Navy is always, it's been kind of a trend now that they've always been beating up on Army. But it ended last year, right?
It ended a couple years ago, and then Army kept winning.
Army did kept winning, yeah. So Navy, who won last year? Do you remember?
Army won last year.
Army did win last. Yeah, so that's also.
I feel like they've won the last 3. Let me check, but I think they've won the last 3, And then, so they've won like the last 3 after kind of Navy had that
long stretch throughout the
2000s.
So Navy
and
definitely
2010s.
being ranked, they're definitely the better team in this one. So if I'm making a pick, I'm going Navy. But it's always it could go either way. It doesn't matter how good these teams are. Every year, it's always a dogfight to the end. So it's just a great game.
Okay, so here it is. So from 2002 to 2015, that was all Navy, and then Army broke that streak in a great game in 2016, and then they continued winning the last 2 years. So they've been winning for 3 years. For me too. I mean, I think Navy's the favorite and who you're probably going to have to go with. The biggest thing, obviously, is that it's going to be a low-scoring, grinding football game. If you enjoy watching that, then you're probably already watching this game every single year because that's always what's fun. If you want a more detailed breakdown on my part of this game, definitely check out my what to expect on Saturday this week, because this is the only game. So, this is where all the focus goes into this awesome rivalry game. But an early look at things, not completely rounded out with my analysis yet, but based on what I'm seeing right now, it sounds like Navy will be singing second this year. So that's what's going on with college football. And Michael, what's your show me what you got?
Yep. So I'm going to NFL playoff picture, but first, Joey, I just got one question for you. What are your thoughts on the Michigan-Bama draw that you guys got?
Okay, so this is really, really interesting to me. The biggest thing is that it wasn't Florida. That's really all that I care about is it's a new team.
Yeah, that's true. You guys, how many times have you played against Florida the last 5 years? It's been at least twice or 3 times.
We've played 3 or 4 times the last 5 years. Let me check that too. It's felt like a million. But it's for Bama, Michigan, I guess, in the Citrus Bowl. The biggest thing for me is it's simultaneously, and I talked about this more on the Joey Goodser show and the Water Cooler podcast. The biggest thing is it's simultaneously a win-win and a lose-lose for Michigan, because on one hand, it's a win-win in that if you lose, everybody kind of shrugs, because this Michigan team has really proven to be what they are at this point. With they are a very, very good team, but they are far from stepping into that very, very top 1% tier of elite teams. Alabama, even though they didn't make the playoffs this year, they're one of those teams. So, hey, if Michigan loses, it would be like losing to Ohio State, except with the whole rivalry aspect of it removed. So I feel like everybody would shrug their shoulders at that. If Michigan wins, then Harbaugh gets some type of marquee win, and just saying, how many teams have been able to beat Bama lately? So, I mean, that would be something big to put under the program's resume as of late. But then on the other hand, it's a lose-lose in that if you win, I feel like people will diminish the credit that the team will deserve, probably because
Tua being out.
Right, Tua being out, lots of players being out. It sounds like Alabama will be energized for this game, which scares me based on what Nick Saban has said. It feels like they're probably going to go out there and prove something. But at the same time, you do have to think about, lots of different players being out, especially Tua. And there's obviously lots of NFL players on Alabama, so
especially that receiving core, definitely.
Right, I think
have their work cut out for them.
I think they'll still have Waddle though, and he had a bunch of touchdowns in that Iron Bowl a couple weeks ago. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, they will have a couple players out, so I feel like that's what kind of makes things closer. But then also, if Michigan wins, then they'll get less credit for that reason. And then, of course, it goes without saying, if in the lose-lose scenario, if Michigan loses, then it's another week of the same, Harbaugh's on the hot seat, Harbaugh can't win big games, and that whole carousel of takes, which, at this point have quite honestly gotten old. But
right.
That's what it is at this point. I don't know. I'm excited because it's something different, something new. I have very, very low expectations. I have, as a fan, I'm bound to just have high hopes about it and hope something crazy happens. But for the most part, I'm wearing a basketball shirt right now. I'm on a basketball season, and I'm excited with what Juwan Howard's doing with the basketball team. So that's my main focus until January 1st. So, yeah, that's what's going on with that.
Yep, so now back to the NFL. So another huge weekend last weekend. So with the Ravens beating the Bills, that basically, I think that puts them in firm position now with that first seed in the bye. So
that was a huge win, and also predictably close too. That's the thing was
the Bills are. People probably didn't realize that, but they're pretty close, to be honest. Like, they're not that far off from being right up there with some of the best teams in the league. And with the Patriots kind of scuffling as of late, they really haven't beaten anybody like that impressive all year long. Because up until what game was that? The Ravens game on Sunday Night Football. I think they were coming in they came in undefeated. I believe the Patriots did. They were probably, was it 9-0 at the time, 10-0, one or the other. But now, after playing against the Chiefs and the Ravens, they've definitely hit a real roadblock here, and they barely beat the Cowboys in that game. I mean, of course, it was a sloppy game condition-wise, but it's still been. They really haven't been the same Patriots team we've seen in the past. Because come week 14 this last week, the Patriots always seem to figure out their offense. Of course, with Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, they always figure things out. But it's had a huge. It's been a whole different field this year because they just have not been able to figure out the running game, and they just had a revolving door of wide receivers, and they really haven't found, outside of guys not named Julian Edelman, they haven't had that guy step up yet.
There's nobody else out there right now.
There's real
for
concern
Tom Brady to throw to.
Yeah, and that defense, of course, is still it's an elite defense, but it's not. I don't think it's as good as we thought it was going to be because they've kind of been exposed the last couple weeks. Of course, they played against not that good opponents the first half of the season, but I mean, it's still a good defense. But it's not. It hasn't lifted, kind of like the Bears did last year. That defense would just lift them up to victories, and the defense hasn't done that. But of course, they played against some Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes is a tough task for any defense. But the Patriots it's a real concern right now, and with the Bills being 9-4, the Patriots 10-3, that game that comes up, I think, is it next week?
Let me check. It's soon. I do know that. It is on the 21st, so it's in a couple
16?
weeks here. Yeah.
Okay, so that game that could have real playoff implications for whichever, possibly a bye or just to win that division. So that'll be if the Bills can somehow beat the Patriots, that'll be probably the first time in probably a decade that a team outside of the Patriots has won that division. So
that's a very, very likable matchup if you're a Bills fan, to be honest. I think the biggest thing was I was very, very excited about this Ravens-Bills game because I feel like the Ravens offense has just been absolutely dominant with Lamar Jackson, proving every single doubt about him wrong over the course of a season. I do think the one thing, though, was recently I think that their flaws on offense had been exposed, and then you had the Bills come in with a very, very powerful defense, and it was a matter of seeing how the Ravens would be able to adjust and, if they could be toppled because of, finally facing a really, really good defense that had access to what they needed to do schematically. Ravens ultimately came out on top, but I think that the close game proved that the Bills are truly a team to look out for. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with the Bills-Patriots game. I think that that's very, very likable, especially considering the very, very harsh limitations that the Patriots have on offense this year. I think that that's going to be very, very helpful for a Bills team that thrives on defense right now.
Right. So, right now, week 16, that game will be in New England at Gillette Stadium. It's slated right now for a 3:30 game, but I believe that game can still be flexed.
Right.
Because the Bears right now are the Sunday night game against the Chiefs, but that could easily, if the Bears lose to the Packers, they could easily remove that and put in that Patriots game because of all the implications that game has. And there's some good games that we can just look in right now. The Rams play against the 49ers, and the Rams have really hit their stride the last couple of weeks. The Titans play against the Saints. The Titans have been a team to look out for, with Ryan Tannehill just reviving his career being in Tennessee. And let's see, the Packers play against the Vikings week 16 too. So once we get there after this week, we have a lot to talk about next week, or I guess that'll be after break, because I don't know if we'll have time next week too, with finals going on. But we'll definitely get back to you guys after the break to talk about all that went down, because that'll be the end of the regular season. We'll have the playoff picture already out after this. Was kind of crazy. We'll be talking about that.
It's crazy how fast things are happening this year.
So I know it's been really fast this year. Everything's just flying by. But so now to get back to the playoff picture, we have the Ravens at 1. Like we said, the Patriots are still holding on to that 2 seed at 10-3. We have the Chiefs with the 3 seed, 9-4. Huge win against the Patriots. We've seen Patriots fans complaining about those missed calls that the referees had, but
I feel like the Patriots fans are the last fans that can complain about that type of stuff.
I know, and I saw a video of just Patriots fans complaining, but all these missed calls, we get no benefits. But I saw a clip. It was like a 5-minute video of the missed calls by the refs the Patriots got in past games. So they shouldn't be complaining. They've definitely got their fair share of calls in the past. So
very true.
They just should stop complaining altogether. So the Texans are at 4, Bills are at 5, Steelers at 6. Steelers have been, after starting 1-4 to win 7 in a row, to be 8-5 is just remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, as I said last time, just so impressed by all the things that they don't have to make them good, and the fact that they're still a playoff contender is absolutely impressive on behalf of Mike Tomlin and the entire coaching staff. The fact that they've been able to keep this team together through everything is pretty crazy. So we'll see what happens once they get in the playoffs roll out here. But so far, very, very impressive season for them.
Let's see, who do they play against? Oh, they play against the Bills this week, so that's a huge game on Sunday Night Football. Bills, Steelers, that'll change the whole AFC playoff picture if the Steelers can win. And
right,
if they lose,
that changes everything.
That could easily just knock them out with the Titans right on their heels, and they play against the Texans on Sunday. So that's another huge game for the AFC South. So there's a lot of shifting that could go on this weekend.
NFL scheduling really, really paying off this week because lots of good matchups. The
last 3 weeks have just been they've been spot on, of course, with the 49ers against the Ravens and the 49ers against the Saints, which is a classic, with the 49ers just edging the Saints after being down I think 2 or 3 scores early in the first half. They just rallied back and they won, of course, 48-46 against the Saints, which was a classic for a regular season game. And so the rest of the AFC playoff picture, it's really just the Titans. That's really the last relevant team because the Browns are 6-7. There's really no shot for them to get back into the wild card hunt with the Titans being 8-5 and the Steelers being 8-5. So those are the only teams that have a real shot at the playoffs in the AFC. And going over to the NFC, of course, the 49ers with that big dub moved to the 1 seed at 11-2. The Packers get the 2nd seed at 10-3. The Vikings are right there at 9-4. But they have the 6th seed, of course, because the Seahawks are another. The NFC West is just the NFC West and the NFC North are just really good this year, with the Seahawks being 10-3 at the 5.
For sure.
The Saints are 10-3 at the 3 seed. And the Cowboys have the final, I guess, the division, clinch, being 6-7, having a 4 seed, which is kind of embarrassing for them just to even be in the playoffs with so many just teams that are better than they are.
Yep.
Meaning
it's been
the Bears or the Rams could be left out, and they definitely are way better than the Cowboys or the Eagles that could get in. So
right. I mean, it's been 4 straight weeks of harsh conversations about Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones going off on radio shows. So, yeah. I mean,
it's not a good sight right now.
It's not a great sight in Dallas right now.
And they get the Rams this week in Dallas. So, if they can win that game, okay, maybe they get some confidence back in themselves.
If they lose, though, the wheels are really going to start falling off here.
And the Eagles I don't know who let's see. The Eagles play against the Redskins. So, yeah, that's an easy win for them, most likely. So, 7-7 Eagles. 6-8 Cowboys. I don't see the Cowboys coming back from that, being 6-8, with the Eagles having a very favorable schedule to finish off the season. So if the Cowboys lose, it's a must win. It's a must have for the Cowboys. So if they lose, I think they're basically done. And the Eagles probably will sneak in with either an 8-8 record or a 9-7 if they can beat the Cowboys later in the year. But either way, the Bears or the Rams probably are going to get gypped up a playoff spot because just the fact of the NFC right now, with with the Seahawks being 10-3 at the 5 and the Vikings 9-4 with the 6, and the Packers and Vikings probably will flip-flop either way depending on who wins the matchup next week. So there's definitely, I think the NFC is probably all but set. We can pray for the Bears to probably get back in it, but with the Rams winning against the Seahawks, that kind of I think was the final straw for the Bears, because with the Rams having the tiebreaker against the Bears, even if the Bears do win 2 more and lose to the Chiefs, that the Rams just win 1 more game and they get Arizona coming up on their schedule again. If they win that game, and the Bears are done anyway with the tiebreaker. So
right. It is crazy though that there is some semblance of hope as far as the Bears team being very, very good lately. I mean, probably the best version of them that we've seen
all year long, for sure.
Right. So
that Cowboys game, that was a fun game. I mean, even to have meaningful football still in December, I guess is a positive considering where we were after that 4-game skid.
It's just the way that it doesn't match up with the expectations is the problem.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
Being Super Bowl was our expectations going into the season. It's been a disappointment, but the fact that they still are playing hard and they haven't given up is a positive.
That is very, very encouraging.
Next year. And the biggest thing is Mitch too.
Right.
We just want to see him play well these last couple of weeks, and if he does, he definitely will earn that spot for next year, and we can build off possibly what he's done. And it's been a good stretch for him lately. So.
Right, definitely showed that on Thursday. Obviously the touchdown being the main thing, but just the plays that nobody really notices, where he's showing more semblance of confidence, connecting on more passes. That's the bigger thing. But we'll see what happens. There's a big schedule ahead of them. Obviously, you have an important game, both historically and season-wise, coming up with I believe it's the 300th or 200th. It's a notable matchup between the Bears and the Packers this week. So we'll see what happens there. And then they got more big teams after that. So that's basically what's going on with the playoff picture, I guess, right?
Yep, that's all for now. So we'll have to see. Once we get back, it'll be all said and done. We'll already have the playoff picture, so it'll be a fun next couple of weeks being on break to sit back and watch some football with college and the NFL. It's always a good time of year, and the NBA too, which got Christmas games. So it's just a great time of year for sports.
Yep,
so
for sure.
We'll definitely get back to you guys.
Mm-hmm. So that is the end of Show Me What You've Got, and let's move into our news segment. Okay, so my news here is this whole Patriots Spygate Redux story, I guess. So basically, the New England Patriots had there was an independent videotaping crew that was at the
Browns Bengals game.
Browns Bengals game.
Week, yep.
He was recording for the Do Your Job series, which is like an independent, which is like a show that the Patriots run week to week. But the notable thing was allegedly he was spending a lot of that time filming the Bengals sideline specifically. So the allegations came out about this. New England makes a statement. And because it is the Patriots, obviously this becomes a very, very big deal because they've had a history with things like this. That's really the biggest thing. So I guess, that's really the biggest thing right now with the Patriots. As of right now, it doesn't seem like they're going to face that severe discipline. It seems like their justification of the whole thing has been checking out so far, but I guess it is a big thing to throw on top of the heap of all the different things going on with the Patriots as an organization over the last 20 years. So, Michael,
with the Flakegate going on, of course, the last couple seasons ago with the Colts and the AFC Championship game with the Deflating the Balls, of course. It's just, I don't know if you can give them the benefit of the doubt. It looks like that they were. It wasn't that big of a deal, to be honest. I mean, I don't think that they really need to cheat against the Bengals, who are 1-11 right now.
Right.
Or 1-13 now, I think. Yeah. Or no, 1-11. But it's kind of when I saw this come out, I think it was either 2 days ago or yesterday. But it's kind of amusing, to be honest, to see this happening again with the Patriots. Any other team, it wouldn't really be news, like you said, but since it's the Patriots, it adds another level to it.
I think the Patriots adds a factor to it. I don't think that other teams would really get noticed for this as much. But then on the other hand, I do think that once this comes out, unlike other teams, I think that the Patriots are less likely to get the benefit of the doubt considering their history. It looks like things will be fine, but it is another thing to note on top of all the things that they've faced in recent years. So, that's basically what's going on with the Patriots right now. We'll see what happens as far as the team and
probably a fine or some kind of discipline. We'll have to see what it is. But.
Right, and we'll see what happens with the team once they make the playoffs here, because that's the biggest question with the Patriots really right now is what can they actually produce out of this season. So that's what's going on with the Patriots.
It's a whole different feel right now in New England, so it'll be interesting to see once we get back how it all shapes out for them. So my news this week is flipping now to baseball, Major League Baseball. So Gerrit Cole signed a massive contract late last night, a 9-year, $324 million with the New York Yankees, which is by far the biggest contract for a pitcher in Major League history. I guess not really by far now, considering Steven Strasburg the day before signed a massive contract as well, signing a $245 million contract over 7 years, and Cole just topped him for 9 years, $324 million. So around similar mid $30 million per season for both of them. Of course, Cole's deal being longer with more money, but the Yankees are dishing out a lot of money now, with considering that they signed Giancarlo Stanton a couple years ago. with $325 million over, I believe it was 13 seasons. Yeah, 13 seasons, which is a total now. The Yankees are going to have to dish out $649 million between those two players over the next however many years remaining on Giancarlo's contract, and then, of course, Cole's contract. So that'll be a lot of money between those two guys, but it's the Yankees. They can basically get whoever they want come free agency, and it'll definitely be a huge shakeup, of course, taking Cole out of the AL West, bringing him to the NL East, or the AL East, excuse me, and of course with the rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox, that'll just add another layer to it. With the Yankees probably being the better team right now on paper, the Red Sox are always there. Of course, we'll have to see how they get back in contention after not making the playoffs this last year and winning the World Series the year before. So they're definitely going to want to get back in contention again. And with the Yankees being the top dog yet again, there's going to be a lot of heat going on come that first series and the whole season in the AL East. So they'll be fun. That'll be a fun division as long as Cole stays healthy and other guys. Of course, the Yankees had a lot of injuries last year. They were still a really good team, but they didn't reach their full potential with those injuries. So that'll be a fun division. And just getting on the topic of divisions, I think it'll be interesting to see how the NL Central plays out too with the Cubs. There's a lot of rumors going on with Chris Bryant possibly being moved, the Cubs not even signing anybody this offseason. So there's a lot to talk about with the Cubs. We'll have to see how it plays out with the winter meetings going on right now. There's a lot that could really shape up for the Cubs, that either they decide to go all in, I guess, for another season, or they decide just to possibly even, I don't know, just do a little bit of patchwork by trading away Chris Bryant and getting some pieces back, pitching pieces probably back from possibly the Nationals or the Phillies, whoever they decide to trade him to, possibly. So we'll have to see how that shapes up. But the Cubs are probably on the best days probably we've seen the last couple of years are probably over for the Cubs. So
yep, for sure.
A lot going on.
The only thing I can pull out of the Gerrit Cole thing is the Yankees are the Yankees again. That's really the biggest thing. We got a top prospect for them out, and they just bought him out.
Yeah.
They got him, and that's usually what's defined the Yankees over the course of their history. So now that they've really done that on the biggest possible level, once again, it's really the whole evil empire Yankees narrative is finally back in baseball, which I think is a good thing for baseball. We'll see how it affects future World Series championships, and if things really start to get unbalanced in their favor again. I think it's just weird because this decade closed out as being the first decade in at least 50 years without the Yankees winning a single World Series, which is the biggest thing that they kind of had a little bit of a falling off.
That's crazy if you think about it, though.
Yeah.
The first decade, and however many decades it is. So
I think since, it's been a while.
But even with Cole signing with the Yankees, too, another thing is, unlike basketball, baseball, anybody can still win. It's not like, they got him, Gerrit Cole, the Yankees are automatically going to win championships, like we've seen with basketball with the Warriors, of course, that they signing Kevin Durant. It was basically all said and done for the Warriors in those seasons. They had a healthy KD, Curry, and Thompson, so that was and Draymond Green. So that was basically, it was all written out that the Warriors were going to win that first season that they got Durant, and it'll just be interesting to see how it turns out now for the rest of the baseball world, because they're going to have the AL East is going to have a lot of catching up to do. With the Rays, a really good team too, but they're not quite, they don't have the money the Yankees do. So it'll be worth watching to see how they play against the Yankees. And of course the Red Sox, they got a lot of money too. So, but they've had a lot of big contracts that they've been dishing out the last couple of years. So I don't know how much money they have to sign other guys to compete with them, but the Yankees definitely have the upper hand right now in that division. So a lot more to come though for baseball free agency.
Yep. To confirm that, so the Yankees have not been in the World Series since 2009. The 2010s were their first decade without a World Series appearance since the 1910s. So it's been
wow.
It's been a century. That's pretty insane. But yeah, no, this is proving that that's all kind of coming to an end, and the Yankees are kind of regressing back to what they are with a very, very big signing just over the last night here. So that's the end of our news segment, and we do not have a Let's Sit Down segment this week. We thank Shaw for being on last week, and we're looking for guests in the future. But yeah, we encourage anyone who wants to be on the show to email sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know why you want to be on the show, and we will most definitely welcome you on the show for sure. Yeah. So we're going to move into our unique touch of analysis segment. They don't scout like this. So our They Don't Scout Like This topic this week is going to be the new MLB uniforms featuring the Nike Swooshes on the chest, which has caused an obvious amount of controversy lately. But I think it's part of a larger conversation, which is, we saw recently in the NBA with advertisements being put onto the jerseys. And, I guess there's the two groups. There's the groups of people who think it's fine and think it's a good way for teams to continue making money. On the other hand, it seems like it somewhat cheapens the brands of the teams, and also that it seems like we could move in a direction that'll eventually be where soccer is now, where, advertisements on jerseys are bigger than the actual team logos. So I guess that's the biggest thing about these. Michael, what do you really think about this whole thing?
I don't really see a problem with it. I just think that, I don't know, they probably could have put it on the sleeves. We're kind of talking about this before. Maybe they could have just
been
less obvious with it, and they could have just put it right on the left sleeve or the right sleeve, whatever. But I don't really see that much of a problem with it. I just think people are just not used to that, probably because Nike hasn't sponsored baseball in the past, and it's been Majestic in the past, and they've always just had it on the sleeve. So I don't know, it's not really that noticeable, but it's definitely a changing trend though for like these, for not soccer, but of course like basketball, like you said, and football really hasn't done that yet. But who knows? They could possibly move in that conversation too.
It's very, very possible.
It all comes down to money usually for these teams, and if they can just bring in a little more revenue with possibly like a sponsorship on the front of their jerseys, they're going to do it. So
right. I mean, so this, for me, it's jersey to jersey. I'm obviously a Cubs fan more than everything. The Cubs jersey, it looks okay with the swoosh. Again, overall, my opinion is should be on the sleeve, but they're not going to do that because branding. They want it to be the most obvious it can be,
right, yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but that's just what it is at this point. But yeah, no, the Cubs jersey looks okay. It's just the jerseys that bother me the most.
The Yankees one looks kind of weird with it.
The Yankees one bothers me because it's the Yankees, and just personally, my other team, the Tigers jersey, looks very, very weird for similar reasons as the Yankees. The other thing too is they don't have their uniform English D on anymore. They have the actual logo, the cap logo on the jersey now on the home jerseys, which is kind of odd. So that combined with the swoosh kind of makes the Tigers jersey look very, very different than what it traditionally does. So I don't know. Overall, I don't love it. I've pretty much accepted that this stuff is going to kind of happen, and hope that it doesn't go too far. This happened at one point, a long, long time ago in football, and it was a big controversy, and things worked itself out in college football, especially once Nike started coming into that too. So
of course, Michigan with
Nike in the mid '90s, that was a huge deal. I think that they were one of the first schools to do that in football. So I mean that and eventually it evolved to where that wasn't frowned upon anymore, and it was just kind of the norm. That's probably what's going to happen with these. But as of now, it feels a little weird, especially on lots of the traditional jerseys. I just wish it would have been fine for them to put it on the sleeves, but we all know that that's probably not going to happen anyway. So that's a big thing. We'll see how that develops in the future because it's a big trend in sports, and it's interesting to see how far teams will go, and if they will actually move in that kind of soccer direction, or do American teams kind of draw the line at some point. But we'll see. So that was They Don't Scout Like This, and we are going to move right into Just Wait Till Next Week. But first, just a reminder, as always, we're going to start your scouting in our next episode. So we encourage any of you guys to call in and ask a question for us. And, make sure you're sending your questions. The number is still 224-544-9330. So we're going to move into Just Wait Till Next Week. All right, so welcome to Just Wait Till Next Week. We kind of look forward to what's going to happen here soon. I guess we've already kind of talked about this, but, Michael, what are you looking forward to as far as things go?
So we'll be back, like I said, after break. So that'll be the first week of January. We'll be back recording. We'll have the NFL playoff picture out. The bowl games will be all but wrapped up, except for the national championship will be coming up. We'll be back in school before that game happens, so we'll preview that game, of course. And there's just a lot of good football that's going to be taking place these next couple of weeks. So we'll have a ton of talk about once we get back. So
that's the biggest thing.
I'm looking forward to all what's going to go on. All that's going to unfold these next couple of weeks. So
that's the biggest thing. We'll see what happens there. If you guys want more coverage on that, obviously here we're just kind of looking at the rankings and Army, Navy. Those are kind of the more relevant things. But then once next week starts, which obviously we won't be around, that's when really the bowl conversation will take over. So my preview this week will be on Army, Navy and recaps of the conference games. But then the next week, right before we go on to break, that will be the big college football playoff and bowl preview special. So that will be the big focus that week, and that'll be the big article. So if you guys want a full preview, I do full previews on all the New Year's Sixes, including the playoff semifinals, and picks on all the bowl games. So that's when that will come out. But when we get back, the national championship will be all that's left. So we will know a lot by then on how things worked out. So I am excited about that. It's always good to sit down for bowl season during the holidays. So that's all we got today. Congrats for sticking through and listening to this whole thing. We appreciate it as always. You can find us in the same places as usual. Subscribe to listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, or RadioPublic. The new podcast outlet this season is PodBean, which is good because it's one of the bigger ones for computer users. So I'm excited about that. So we're also on PodBean now. Give us a positive review, like us, whatever they do, wherever those places are. Subscribe to watch on YouTube. We don't have any new subscribers this week, but we got to keep it.
It's okay.
We got to keep it going. So always do that. Of course, read the Force Scout. Lots of good articles as always. Make sure you check out the Force Scout Friday email on Friday. And we talked about the sports ones. There's a really, really cool one about 70s issues of the Force Scout.
That came out yesterday. So that was a good read.
Very, very good read. Casey Murray wrote a column, opinion editor, news editor, always doing his thing in ways that others really can't. So
right.
That's awesome. We got columns about football. Matthew Gurian reflected on football. Advice for finals if you need advice for finals. Lots of different coverage in lots of different places, as always, on the Force Scout. So check into that every single day. That's the biggest thing right now. Just a couple things for this season, guys. There isn't anything up there this week, but in the future, we're going to try to feature different sports teams that are currently relevant. So, Lake Forest High School sports. So the biggest thing is definitely if you're interested in lending us your jersey for one episode, definitely let us know about that. We want to feature lots of different teams, so we will do that starting next week. And the other thing too is if you're looking to advertise, we will probably be doing some ad reads this season. So that's the other thing too. But that's all we got. So get ready for another week of Sports Scouts, and in the meantime, we'll keep on scouting. See you guys later.
See you later.